approach. I use the same approach I did in the late 70s, and it seems to work. You know, I everybody I bring on the show, I take them at face value. Now, that's not saying I believe what they say, you know, but I give them the opportunity to say what they want to say, you know, and then I leave it up to the listener to make their decision if the guy's a crackpot or not.
You don't want somebody to come on your show and feel like they're being questioned or attacked, or, you know, and I think that's what's great about the show is that you're allowing people to voice their opinion and not get off the air and feel like, wow, that he just railed me for an hour and a half.
Oh yeah. I mean, I listen to some shows where they do that. You know, they basically, you know, they torture the guest without the guest realizing it. And I'm sure after the guest is off and they go to bed that night, all of a sudden they realize that they were kind of made a fool of, you know. That's the other thing I have in the paranormal. It really drives me crazy. You listen to some of these shows out there, right? They do so much damage to the paranormal without realizing it.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't, one, they don't know the subjects to talk about. They don't know. I make a point of, and I don't know what you guys do, but every time I bring a guest on, if they wrote a book, I'll read majority of that book before I bring them on.
Yeah. Definitely got to have some knowledge about it.
Yeah. And, you know, considering I have a guest every night, 5 nights a week, I mean, you know, I spent a long time, you know, researching each guest, so I know what questions to ask, and it seems to be working. And I mean, you know, I think, you know, if you guys give it a little more time and you know, and figure out exactly the route you're going to go, you'll have the guest. You know, I will recommend listen to some of these other shows on the internet, and you'll find out real fast what you need to do to make your show even a lot better.
Yeah, you know, definitely.
You're completely right with the paranormal shows is, you know, if you go on and you're claiming to be a paranormal show and you have no idea what you're talking about, what is going to make people stay and listen? And, you know, with Bobby and I, we try to always, you know, when we decide to come up with a topic, you know, him and I are both usually, you know, we're usually competing with each other to figure out who knows more about that subject the following week. But you got to go on air and you got to have some type of knowledge of what you're talking about, because, my God, nobody wants to listen to it if you don't.
Oh, no. You know,
I think that's the thing that we want to try to do to keep our show, too, is like, you know, I don't want to say different from everybody else, because everybody else tries to do the same thing, obviously. But, you know, it's all about the facts for me. You know, just like Rich was saying, what you're saying, got to come correct, got to have some knowledge, got to know what you're talking about. If you don't know what you're talking about, it's just not going to work. So,
you know,
I think
I'd say I have listened to some hosts, you know, that you know, are very high rated, but they get on and the guest actually takes control. I'll be honest with you, the first 2-3 months of my show, you know, I was starving for guests at that point. Now I don't even really have to look for guests; they come and find me, you know, and I'm very selective. But at the start, it seemed like what I would get in would be psychics and mediums. Psychics and mediums almost every night. One of the people I hired was booking in mediums and science. You know, how many times can you interview somebody on the same subject? You know, I mean, it's called boring. You know,
and it's just going to be the same questions for you every night.
Well, I can honestly tell you can bring in 10 psychics and 10 mediums and get 10 different answers on each one.
Yeah, it's just, you know, opinions and assholes, right?
I don't know. I mean, you know, some of them, you know, I had one lady on my show, and I'm not trying to downgrade anybody. So for the audience out there, if you think I'm picking on my guests, I'm not. But I had one lady that she was 67 years old. But, you know, she was reincarnated. She's a medium. And she was telling me about how in her prior life she worked for a major police department out of, L.A. And she was a 911 operator. Now, I started really figuring okay, she's 67 years old, right? And she was reincarnated, right? They didn't have 911 operators. That would have 60. You figure her age.
Plot twist.
Hey, it was a dead giveaway. But she believed it, and I let her talk about it. She was a nice lady, and she had a lot of interesting things to say. And she wrote a good book, and I read the book, and actually, it was a very good read. I mean, you just have to overlook a few things, But then I also had a retired detective on my show that when he retired, he wanted to go into hypnotize people and take them into past lives. And, I asked him, I said, well, did you ever investigate any of these people that you took them back? And he goes, yeah, I did. And he, said that it was kind of scary because a lot of these things that the people were saying, he found, where they were born under that name, all the same things that happened, kind of all jive together. So it makes you wonder.
Yeah, and I've run across some mediums and psychics. I've run across a few that I truly believe are 100% legit. I've also run across some where you can just look and kind of shake your head and quietly just know, yeah, this story is not anything that they're saying. But that's that's like anything in the world. Like you're gonna run across people that they need that attention, they need that, acceptance, and, it's tough because when you're trying to be in a field and you have people that are doing that, you're hurting everybody. Like you said, some of these shows, you're hurting the entire field because of some of the shows that you're putting on. And, and it's what I talk about with Bobby a lot, because he doesn't get real involved with the whole paranormal side, but, he sits back and laughs sometimes at some of the things I tell him.
Well, some of the paranormal stuff, I did, and I don't care if you guys believe me or not, but, I was talking about it the other day with Kevin, a guest on my show, was actually going to be hosting my Sunday show this week for me. But I ran into a Bigfoot with a friend of mine who just got out of internship. He was a medical doctor. He just fitted a new office for his medical office. And, I was an avid photographer. At that point, I was managing like a chain of major professional camera stores. And that's how I got to know him. He goes, hey, let's go on a road trip. I was very noted at that time for doing ghost town type pictures and old, pictures like that. And I said, okay, where you want to go? And he goes, Canadian Rockies. We went up to Canadian Rockies. We went to an old Japanese internment camp, which was 2 miles off a deserted road up in the Canadian Rockies, and we ran into a Bigfoot. And I'll tell you, that, people can deny it or whatever. Scariest thing ever. But I know from my experience what happened, what it looked like. So when I get other people coming on and wanting to be on the show, the very first thing I do is I kind of quiz them. And, I can find out really fast. I had Ed Romans. If you lived in Canada, you'd know he's the number one folk singer in Canada. He had an experience with Bigfoot. Matched everything that I saw, what he saw. Mm-hmm. Scary. Wow. But then, I've had people want to be a guest on my show. One guy claimed, he sent me for months emails almost every day. I want to be a guest on your show. I'm a Bigfoot hunter. I have 30 years experience. So I finally got a hold of the guy on the phone because, he was kind of annoying me a lot. And I said, okay, well, where have you looked for Bigfoot at? Where have you been out looking? And he goes, well, I haven't. I studied it on the internet, and before that, I read books about it.
Well, that makes him a professional.
Yeah, it makes him a professional. I don't know what. I mean, how can you be a Bigfoot hunter if you only go on the internet and, you look at what's on the internet and you read books on it for 30 years? Does that make you a Bigfoot hunter? No, it don't. He never made it on my show. I can tell you that. He never did. And after I told him that he wasn't going to be on my show, I never heard again from him.
I'll tell you what, you ever seen Les Stroud's Survivor Man? You ever heard of him by chance?
Oh, I used to watch that. It was a good show.
Okay. Did you ever see his Bigfoot episodes? Because he actually did 2 straight seasons dedicated to trying to find Bigfoot, and he's got some amazing footage and some great stuff. I don't know if you've seen that or heard of it.
No. I Probably
Okay,
didn't
so
watch it when that was on.
He went out to go do a show. You know, he went to go get lost and be a survivor man. You know, and get lost out in the wilderness. And he had an experience. And you know, he didn't think nothing of it. And then he went out again, I think, with his wife or his son or something at a time, and he had another experience. And it was real and scary enough for him to completely switch focus of being a survival expert and doing these survivor shows to doing Bigfoot hunting. And he's got some of the best evidence that I've seen. And in terms of seeing, you know, and obviously I'm not a professional or whatever or something like that, but to take it seriously and look at it as a scientific perspective, and since you just brought it up, I just wanted to throw that out there. It was a great show, and I thought it was very, very wonderful. I think you should take a look at it and really, you know, tell him what you think about it. Maybe you can get him on the show and interview him and see what he's got to say, because he knows his stuff. And from what he was doing, you know, as fine as being a Bigfoot hunter, great stuff.
Well, you know, that would be interesting, because the episodes I saw him, you know, being out with his little camera, where he'll place, you know, he would build for, you know, to stay and live in, and what he had to do.
He's no BS. He carries all that stuff around with him.
Oh,
he doesn't have a crew with him. He's no bear. He does all that stuff on his own. So
but then, you know, I actually talked to one of the show's stars that was just canceled, Finding Bigfoot. And, you know, I hate to say it, that also does, and I'm probably going to get sued on this, but that kind of does damage to the paranormal, because what he told me is, you know, how could you even begin to look for Bigfoot if you got a crew of 13 people tramping around with you while you're supposedly looking for Bigfoot, which they didn't even give them enough time to go out and really look.
You're not going to find a deer that so much as a Bigfoot, you know what I'm saying? It's just, and that's why I like what Les Stroud was doing, because he went out there with another guy that he had met up with who was a definitive Bigfoot hunter who has some great footage himself out there. And, you know, they systematically did it. They would hide little small cameras throughout the forest. They would camp out by themselves and no one else. And they would really try to do things that, you know, they would do not with 14, 15 people tromp through the woods with microphones and backpacks and flashes and cameras and lights. You know what I mean? It's you're going to scare everything away. You're not going to find a snail.
Well, that's I'm saying
it's just like that with the paranormal too. I mean, you got these groups that go in there 20 deep, and you know they're trying to claim that they're, you know, searching for demons and the whole thing. You're not going to find it. It's a lot, you know, it's a lot more believable when you have just one or two people and really taking it seriously, and you know, just a little camera, no big production company, you know, because I mean, when you have that production company, you have to find something, whether that's going to be generated by you or by the environment. You know, unfortunately,
or you go to the cable, Travel Channel, that for years had a ghost hunting show.
Yeah.
And the one guy quit. And he would actually came out and said that, you know, they'd go out and they didn't have enough time even to really do any research. They would come back, right? Yeah. And they would say, we don't have anything. And they would say, the network would say, go back out and find it. Fake it. Whatever. Come back with some, you know, footage. That does so much damage when you hear that, you know. Yeah. But then I have a group that's been on my show, I think, twice, and they're going to be back on in June, called Southern Paranormal. I mean, these guys take it serious, and, you know, they have gotten some really good, sounds of strange voices, you know, recorded. And they've seen some things that it's really interesting, and it makes your eyebrows stand out. But then, like, I had another two guests on the show from another group. I'm not going to say who they are, but they are on Facebook a lot. They advertise they're on YouTube a lot. And I got them on the show, and I realized the first 5 minutes, their whole idea was not so much trying to go ghost hunting and find stuff. They wanted to get a contract with a cable company for their show. Yeah. That's what they wanted. They wanted a contract. Well, why would, you know, they weren't on my show very long.
No, and unfortunately,
that's another thing too.
A lot of that.
I was just going to say, with me and Rich, I don't think we're really in this for the money. We kind of just do it as a passion project, and I think that's when you start